What does a man who never had that modeled for him do when it's his turn to show up?
Wow. There's got to be a willingness to not repeat um, what was done and notice in understanding that this
What
is
does a
not the way
man
that you
who
want to
never had
continue.
that
This is
modeled for
not the
him?
way you want that to happen. For me, it was that. It was a willingness of, there's a story about a twin where the father was an alcohol when I was alcoholic. And one said, you know what, because my father was alcoholic, what do you expect me to become? Because that's what was modeled to me. And the other one said, because my father was an alcoholic, I don't want to become a. So same scenario, same environment, two different outcome. So there's got to be a willingness of not repeating the same thing and noticing the consequences and wanting to be better. But that didn't stop there. Is when I became a father and I realized, first of all, it hit me. And that's where I were because my whole life I've never had a father and never had a father figure. So I don't know what I was missing because you've never had it before. Until I become a father and I realized the work that it requires and how my children needed me present, not just a provider financially, which what I was taught my whole life, but also being there emotionally, spiritually. And that's when it saddened me because I see now what I'm missing, and I didn't know I was missing that until that I had to give it, but I didn't know where to go look for it. So I was just kind of like all over the place, trying to give something I've never had and didn't know where to start and didn't know where to get that information or that resources. So it was really hard. But I believe I did the best that I could or still am with the information that I had and the resources that were available to me.
Yeah, I love where you started that at with the twins because people are like that. We have these experiences, and a lot of people say you can, rise to the occasion or you can fall to the occasion. It really just depends on your mindset, what you're going to do with where you start and what you've been given. So I love that you were like, you didn't even realize until you were in it. You're like, okay, wait a minute. I'm trying to be a father. What does that look like? What does that sound like? What does that feel like? Because wow, I couldn't even imagine. I mean, I know for me as a woman, when I found out I was going to be a mother, I was like, okay, I
Mm,
guess we're going to do this. But of course, I had my mom who raised me, and I know that even though I had her, I always felt a little ill-equipped. Like, I don't know if I know how to be a good mother. I don't know if I
mm.
should even be a mother. So, were you planning on becoming a father? Was that something you always wanted to do? Or was it just like, oh, well, I guess we're doing this now kind of situation for you?
Um, I always wanted to be a father, but I did plan on how I was gonna, because I didn't want to become a father without properly understanding. Even when I did become a father, I didn't properly understand, and I wish, even though it doesn't come with a manual, but there are certain things or certain steps I could have taken to prepare me for fatherhood. Not how to be a father, but for fatherhood itself. And I think giving the giving what I know as a man at the time. This is something that I would say to every father. Even if you're already a father, it's never too late to learn. But if you're not yet a father, definitely understand. And more importantly, and I'm listen, more importantly, if you don't want to become a father, you have to be aware of who the mother is going to be. Because I think it's important, in the midst of the love and the chemistry and this and that, do you see this person as a mother of your child? And do you see this man as a father of your child? Because I have warned women. I said you could tell if you're gonna become not all the time if you're gonna become a single mother based on how this man is showing up. And I always tell men, based on the way that she's showing up, do you think she will be a good mother? Now, there is no indication to that, but there are some things, so some patterns, some habits you can see, and it will help you understand. Now, if you're okay with that, by all means, fine. But I think we have to be aware of who we are, and the biggest problem that we have right now in this generation is identity crisis. We don't know who we are, so therefore we don't have boundaries, so therefore we accept anything and everything. So I think we have to start with ourselves. We have to take responsibility and accountability, and not blaming the other person. Whether it's in the, having the children together, because you didn't have this child by yourself, there was somebody that was involved. Now you have to take responsibility. Say, hey, I decided to lay down with this woman, with this man. Now we have a child. That I may not be a good husband. You may not be a good wife, but does not mean you can't be a good mother. Does not mean you cannot be a good father. So let's make sure that we come together uh, for the wellness and the well-being of this child, that we came together under whatever circumstances we have this child together. Now let's raise this child to become the best daughter, the best son, the best woman, the best man that the world have ever seen.
Mm. Yeah, that's so important, to think about those qualities in a person. And that's one of the things that we always said to our kids when they were growing up and they talk about dating or whatever. I'm like, do you really want to start dating now? You plan on starting a family? Like, why do you want to be exclusive with this one person? Like, if you want to be exclusive with this one person, is it because you want to have a family with them? Are they family material? Are they marriage material? If not, what's the point? Why are we doing this? And that's how we got through the teenage years.
Wow,
So,
wow. Great
um,
advice.
yeah, some of them were okay with it, some of them not so much, but they figured it out. And we're on to the last of the Mohicans. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, are there some qualities that you would share that people should be looking for if they're looking for a mother or a father for their future children?
Absolutely. Because with the work that I do, and I talk from a man perspective, and this is when I've talked to uh my women clients, and that are single, and that wants to do dating, or that have been divorced and wants to get back in the dating world. There are certain questions that you can ask a man. Right then and there, you can tell whether or not this person deserves a second date. This person doesn't even deserve your time. First of all, especially if you're talking to a man, you got to ask this question. You have to be very open and candid. Have you have you ever been to therapy, or are you open to go to therapy? Especially in our community. And I think that's a great question, because if you're a Christian, or if you're a woman of faith, I think the first question should be, what's your belief, and what does God represent to you? Who's Jesus? I think that's important. It's a fundamental. If you're a Christian person, that should be your very first question. Now, let's just say you're non-religion, or not faith at all, which is fine. Then you can always start. But I believe that we all have belief, because we believe in something, right? Because if we don't believe in something, will fall for anything. So I think beliefs is at the core of who we are as human being. Now, I'm gonna close that door. Now, I think the question that we need to ask a man is, have you been to therapy? And if you have not been to therapy, are you open to? Because I didn't start therapy till I was 40. So if somebody had asked me if I had been to therapy, if that wasn't an education indication whether you're gonna go out with me, they probably wouldn't go out with me, because I've never been exposed to therapy, and I didn't have any. I didn't think that I needed a therapy until I needed therapy. So, have you been to therapy, or are you open to it? Second is, was your father around, or did you have a father figure? Because that's important, because it's gonna take a man to raise to raise another man. And also, what's your relationship with your mother? Because a lot of men are looking for a mother in a relationship, and that's why a lot of relationships don't work, because they are looking for that mother. And unfortunately, in our community, 85% of household are single mother home. So we have a woman that's trying to raise a boy to become a man. How's that possible? Is that mean going to a dentist and tell the dentist to fix my car? Now he's a professional. He's got knowledge. He's smart, but he cannot help me with my car. But it doesn't make him less than a dentist. So it doesn't make a woman less than a mother, less than a parent. But this woman, unfortunately, isn't equipped to raise a young boy to become a man. That takes a man. And of course, we're talking about the feminine energy because if there's too much feminine energy around a man, it's gonna be very argumentative. It's that he may not have the leadership quality that he needs. And I'm not saying that the mother cannot give the quality, but what I'm saying is, in the bigger scheme of thing, there are certain things that the mother, no matter how great of a mother she is, how great of a parent she is, there's certain things he cannot give to this child. So we talk about faith, we talk about therapy, we talk about the relationship or lack thereof of the father and the type of relationship he has with his mother. Fourth, how is this man talking about his last relationship? Did he take any accountability for how the relationship ends? And moreover, is he blaming? How is he talking about this his ex? And is it very condescending, very degrading? All her fault. Those are the things that you need to run for your life because you're gonna be the next victim. So, those are the fourth and there was a fifth one. Um, you know, how easy with direction? Does he have a coach? Does he have a mentor? Okay. Now his father could be his coach, his father could be his mentor, but he doesn't have his father or father figure. Does he have a coach? Does he have a mentor? Because that's how he's going to build his leadership skill. Can he take direction? Can he submit? And of course, last but not least, has his relationship with money or financial, uh, 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 you know, financially. I mean, is he equipped? Does he understand how money works? And then within that, 1A, 1B, how long do you? What's the longest time that you stay at a job? Because if you change job every 6 months, more than likely this relationship will only last 6 months because you are so used getting into something and out of it, getting into it and out of it. So these are all the patterns. Now this is for a man. I don't know what it would like for a woman. If I'm talking to a man, yeah, I would say pretty much a lot of those things. But there's one thing I would say that is a double standard. But it is nonetheless, if you're a man, please understand, how high is the body count? I know this is not popular, and I know this is an unpopular opinion, but I do believe it's a sin for a man. But because, and I'm gonna, we're here to be authentic, we're here to be real. If a key opens a lot of doors, it's a master key. But if the door opens up by so many keys, then I'll let you use your imagination. Now, I'm not. It is double standard. I understand. Now, if this woman is a Christian, this is under the blood. This is pre-Jesus. Then the Bible says, all things will pass away, and now we become new. Now, all joke aside, because that goes for men and women, and I'm not talking about. I don't want to get into too deep, but I think it's important. It's important because there's what we call spirits in exchange of energy. Because the more people that you are around in an intimate level, well, the more of that spirit that you can, just take, for example, someone that's been married 25, 30 years. Have you ever noticed they always finish each other's sentences? In some cases, they almost look like brothers and sisters because of the DNA exchange. So had I know that, I wish I knew then what I know now, but then again, I wouldn't be the person that I am today and doing what I'm doing. But what I am saying is, there's all the things, and I know that I'm very excited about this conversation because those are the things that I wish I knew growing up as a man that didn't, I spent, I'm 46 today, and I can tell you. and one hand the length of time that I spent with my mother. And so in the 46 years, if I combine all the time that I spent with my mother, I say probably 4 years, maybe
Mm,
five.
mm.
And with my father, zero.
Wow, wow. You
With a
had
with a father figure,
oh,
zero.
yes.
So when someone look at me and say, hey, you know what, he's broken, he's this, is that, but do you know what I've been through? So
Mhm.
I always trying to tell people, do not judge someone based on their choices when you don't know what the options are they are. And I'm not making excuses, but before we judge somebody, get to know them first. Because the man that I'm trying to become today, he has not been easy. And I keep making mistakes, but I keep learning from them and I keep moving forward. And I'm using everything, my trauma, uh, my wounds to become a better version of myself. So please give me some grace. And I had to learn to give myself some grace. I will start there.
Yes, yes. No, that's an important one. Definitely a great place to stop because we forget to give ourselves grace. We will give everybody else all the excuses in the world, but we forget to give ourselves grace. So I love that. But man, that list was amazing. I hope anyone that's listening that is not in a relationship right now and looking to get into one really takes that list to heart. And I love how, even though with a Christian background and all of that, you still put in that a man needs to know how to submit as well. Because a lot of people talk about women submitting, but they never talk about men submitting. And it's like,
Well,
it's a
well, I think it's
it's a different
important.
kind of submission, but
Absolutely, absolutely. And I just kind of like just open up just a little bit. Um, because if you're asking someone to submit, which you shouldn't ask someone to submit, they should see that you are submitting either to authority, if you're a Christian, either to the word of God. And I always tell them, man, if you are fighting a woman to submit to you, it is your problem. It is a you problem because you're not asking her to submit to you. You're asking her to submit to the mission. Now, you shouldn't have to ask her to submit to the mission because from the beginning, she should already know what the mission is. And a woman know her strength and her ability to assess and to follow. And a woman's biggest strength is her silence, is her way of cooperating um, so long that he stays within the mission. And of course, you're not going to follow a man that's going to, lead you astray, of course. You got to use discernment. You have to use wisdom, so on and so forth. So you cannot ask someone to submit when you're not willing to submit to either authority, to God, whatever. So I think you got to start with the man.
very, very true. I think it was Jill Scott that said something about if you can lead me, you can lead me. Like basically, if you can
Oh,
do it,
yes, yes.
you can
I
do
saw
it.
that
Like,
interview. If you can
yeah,
lead me,
like
you can lead me. Yes,
hmm exactly. And that's just, it's a whole energy that people don't seem to understand. They think it's supposed to just be expected. And it's like you have to be the right person in the right place, doing the right things for a woman to submit
absolutely.
to you and follow you in that manner. And unfortunately, like you said, a lot of people are having identity crisis out there today. So we need more leaders. We definitely need more leaders. But before we go further, let me tell you a little bit about who you're listening to. My guest today grew up in Haiti, never knowing his father, as he's already shared with you, and navigating circumstances that would have broken most people. Instead of letting that define him, he let it drive him. Will Baptiste is now a certified mental health first aid coach, the author of The Will to Rise, and the founder of Rising Men Alliance. It's an organization built around men's mental health, suicide prevention, and fatherhood and empowerment. He's been nominated for the 2024 Black Healthcare Heroes Award in Toronto. He received the 2025, I'm going to say this wrong, Home de Impact Award for his
Oh,
community leadership. I have to think French, right? In fatherhood and was honored as a 2026 Black History Month laureate. He's here today because he knows firsthand what it costs a child to grow up without a present father. And he's made it his mission to change that story for the next generation. So, so happy to have you here with us, Will. So, I'd love to know when you look back at everything you've been through, at what point did you realize that your wounds, as you said, were actually preparing you for this work that you do today?
because I'm a man of faith, because I believe in God, and because I believe He's all power, all knowing. I remember when I had my first encounter, and I call it the or my road to Damascus. My wake up call. Um, I was fighting two spirit, two voices, call it what you will. On one hand, I said I was cursing God. I said, you God. How could you allow? How could you be that God, mighty God, great Father? You allow all this to happen to me, the sexual abuse, the molestation, and this and that and the third, and being suicidal. I mean, how could you? You a great Father. How could you? And I was just debating and going back and forth and cursing God. And on the other hand, and I said, but you are God. You knew that I was gonna go through this. That means you must have a purpose, a reason for me to go through what I'm. So, and unfortunately, a lot of men don't get to see the other side. That's why they stay on this side, and then they ended up doing something that is very irreversible, regrettable, because of never seeing the other side. And it wasn't until I saw I look at the other side and say, well, you are all knowing, you're all powerful, you're a great God, you're a mighty God, but you still allow me to go through it. That must be a purpose. That's when I realized that I wasn't going through this just for the purpose of going through it. Yes, part of it, the decision that I made, they weren't the best decisions, but at the same time, how can I use what I because one of the things that I that I didn't want to happen is to go through all this at the end and not using it for a greater good. Because I would have been going through this for nothing. So I'm like, how can I put this to work knowing everything that I've been through to help somebody else? And that's when God has revealed to me, this is your ministry. Because in my head, I grew up in church and I always heard ministries about, having a mic and a pulpit and have a congregation. No one ever told me that your ministry could be in different areas in different ways. And then that's when I took that calling and I said, okay, God, this is what you've called me to do. I don't know how to do it, um, but I'm sure that you're gonna show me. You're gonna lead the way for me. And so that's how I was able to use my trauma to triumph. I used to use my wound and my and everything else. And in my book, I talk about a cake, beautiful chocolate cake. And I said, when you're making a cake, when you're baking a cake, you've got flowers, which you can't eat alone, but all by itself, you got eggs. I mean, yes, you can crack an egg, you can eat a chocolate, but it's not the best taste. A stick of butter, no one is gonna eat a stick of butter. Um, a pound of sugar, probably you're not gonna do that because it's not good for your health, so on and so forth. Individually, every ingredients, you cannot use them on their own, but when you put them together with the right amount with the right recipe, and what do you get? You get a beautiful chocolate cake that you can enjoy. Today, I am that beautiful chocolate cake that have been that, but everything that's inside of me was part of the cake that people will see today. Now, people see this cake today. Oh my God, he's open, he's vulnerable, he's authentic, he's doing great. Now they seeing the finished product. But every once in a while, I take them back. I say, look at those individual ingredients that make this cake today. If you look at it that way, you probably would have never thought that today this is what I will become. So I always say, people, everything that you go through it's an ingredient, it's part of a finished product. But so often, people don't let the cake bake fully or with the right temperature. They give up. So for me, I'm blessed and fortunate enough to see way, way down the road. And that's what a visionary is someone that can see things and call it to existence before it happens. And I was able, God Took me 10 years down the road, 15 years to say, this is where I'm going to take you. But you must suffer first because I'm going to do great things with you. And you're going to help men, not just in the community, but around the world. And it's starting already. But that was 5 years ago. A lot of sacrifice, a lot of sacrifice, personal sacrifice, family. But today I'm doing this because this is what I've been called to do.
I love that. I love that. The ministry. A lot of people, like you said, think of ministry as, you have to be in a pulpit, you have to be a preacher or something like that. And your ministry can just be your daily life. And a lot of people don't
Literally.
realize that they are
Mhm.
the testimony, just being here for some of us. And so I love that you're able to share that and be able to have that vision and see it and accept it and rise to the occasion. And so now we have you here today helping these men that so deeply need it, and also helping yourself and healing yourself and continuing to grow and change. And the conversation that we were going to have today, I thought it would be so perfect to have you on because I'm usually talking to moms about moms and personal growth for moms, but Father's Day is coming up. So I was like, you know what? Who would be better to talk to than my dear friend Will? I need to get him on here. So I'm so happy that you were able to join us. And most people hear that phrase, imperfect father, that we put as the title here, and they immediately think of everything that went wrong. And you've kind of flipped that. Like, why does imperfection and presence actually go together for you?
Well, for too long, we are trying to be a perfect father, but not a present father. Because of society, pressure from society, sometimes comparison, sometimes because we didn't have a perfect father, so we wanna be that perfect father for our children, but we missed the mark. It's like me, eh, thinking so much about the destination and I forgot to enjoy the journey. So imperfect father, but present father. And when I mean present, I mean emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, not just financially, not just physically, all of the above. And I think society also has a part to do with that because we don't give fathers enough room to be fathers. If you look at the healthcare system, different places, institutions, father sometimes is treated as a donor. Father is treated as just a facilitator, but not a parent. Just not too long ago, I did a conference on single fatherhood because that word usually associated with mothers, but not fathers. And there are fathers that are single fathers that are doing the best that they can with the limited resources that they have to show up for their children. And this is not to compare mothers and fathers, but the presence of a father. If it takes two to make a child, now different circumstances may require that man not to be in the child's life for you know because it's better for him not to be there, of course, certain circumstances. But in most cases, fathers are pushed out. And I think that problem is deeper. I think it's spiritual because the father represent the person the protector. So if we remove the protector, if we remove the person that guard the family, then the family is left vulnerable. Because I think there's a spiritual aspect to that, but also there's a government. The government will reward a single mother because they know that and it's an investment for the government because the government say, "Hey, I'm stepping in as the father because I'm waiting for him to mess up because this child is gonna be labor. This child, I'm gonna need to use that." And it's unfortunate. But those are the things that we don't want to talk about. But I don't mind talking about those because it's reality, and we've seen that too often in our society. So being an imperfect father, perfectly imperfect, I might add, is just do your best. What does your best look like? It may not look like the neighbors. It may not look like that your children are going to college, uh, you know, uh, 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 private school, or having the latest iPhone and having new clothes and so on and so forth, that does not make them a perfect father. A perfect father is someone who understands that it takes more than just money to be a father. It takes mental strength. It takes wisdom and understanding. It takes listening. Have great listening skills. Um, not being a dictator, but lead with love and compassion. Lead with a soft tone of voice. Lean in. Um, be their friends when you have to. It's just so much into fatherhood, and also taking care of the mother. Also, it's a way of being a great model. How you talk to the mother, or to women in general, but more importantly, how you talk to her or his mother. And sometimes we can lead just being vulnerable and let the child know, hey, I don't have to be stoic. I don't have to have it all together. And I don't always have all the answers. And also be willing to listen to your child and learn from your child as well. So it may sound a lot, but you'll learn as you go if you have a willing um and open mind and say who you want to be. You'd be the father that and also understand that you're gonna be a different father for every child. You're not the same father to Johnny as you will to Diana. Even if they were twins, even if they were twins, because they'll still have the different version of you because they're different entity, if you will, different creature. Each of them will require a different father or father style. So don't try to father all your children the same. They're gonna resent you. Don't try to be, the same in every aspect, in every stage of your life, because Johnny's gonna need a different type of father at 5 than he will at 15, than he will at 20. So is it a lot of work? Yeah. That's why you have to think about it before you become a father. Then again, you don't want to think about it too much, then you're paralyzed. Yeah, oh my God, that's so much work. I don't want to become a father. So this is what I like, about harmony and that balance. We'll talk about that later on. Because a lot of time we're trying to strike a balance, and that doesn't exist. The famous work-life balance, that doesn't exist. It's a made-up word. But anywho, we will get to that.
Yes, yes. I love that. I love that. Showing up imperfectly perfect because that's all we can do is be our flawed humans that we are, but still realizing that showing up is more than a paycheck. It's more than a roof over their heads. It's more than physically being in the room. So I love that you pointed that out because some people miss that. And I think it happens again, like you said, because of that identity piece and because a lot of men out there are working so hard to pay the bills and make sure everybody's taken care of and they're suffering. And so they don't
Mhm.
even know how to take the time to pour into their family. And I definitely learned with 5 kids that you cannot parent them all the same. They do all need different parents and at different times. And yes, our oldest now is 30 and married and pregnant. So that's a whole different style of parenting, of course, than when she was 3. But she still needs a parent. She still, comes to us for things and, still relies on having those parents available to speak to bounce ideas off of. And that I think is so important, especially like you said, it takes two, usually a mother and a father, to create a child. It takes, both sexes. And whether it's a girl or a boy, they need both of those inputs in their life to help them be whole, full, well-rounded human beings.
So,
It really helps. Um, so I know that you work specifically with men from like marginalized communities, right? But what are some unique pressures that those men are carrying when it comes to fatherhood that we don't talk about enough?
unique pressure. Um, they are the fear of not being a good father, and they were never told what a good father is. In their mind, in the imaginary world, they're like, I want to be a good father, but what does that mean? Are you not a good father? What do you need to make you a good father? So the pressure is usually is about, sometimes it comes from the partner as well, and it's unfortunate. The pressure comes from the partner, especially if there's if they separate or there's a divorce, the pressure even amount to even more. No, now let's just say the father is still with the mother and they, married or whatnot. They have a great relationship. I think it's they're afraid of not being the man they should be for the for their daughter. But one question that I always ask a man, if you know that you are a quote unquote a good father, would you want um your daughter be with a man like you? And would you want your son to be a man like you are? If the answer is no, then you got work to do. You're always gonna have work to do, but you gotta get to a point to say, you know what? Would I want my daughter to date a man like me? Ask yourself that question. You don't have to answer, but you must ask yourself that question. And if you have a daughter, would you like if you have a son, would you like a woman to be with your son because you are modeling that person for? So uh, this is a question. I mean, a man that wants to evolve always going to ask that question. I'm not necessarily saying that they're going to question themselves or doubting themselves, but you're always going to be in the quest of how can I be better? What can I do? Have I utilized all the tools? Do I need new tools? Do I need new skills? Parenting skills, so on and so forth. So I think you constantly have to evolve. You constantly have to want to better yourself. And one of the signs that you are wise, because there's a difference between wisdom and intelligence. And a lot of times people are confused the two. Intelligence is knowing stuff, but wisdom is to know how to use the intellect that you have. And a lot of people are intelligent, but they're not wise. Intelligence is to know what to say. Wisdom is to know when to say it and to whom to say it. So a wise man is always in the quest because the more a wise man, the more he knows, the more he realizes how much he doesn't know. A fool thinks he knows enough. So always be wise in the quest of knowing how can I and also update yourself because right now, I mean, I feel bad for fathers who are not. I'm not saying to become tech savvy, but you got to know because this is the world we live in. It's like a father saying, I don't know how to drive because I sit and ride my horse. I mean, this is 2026. I mean, if you don't know how to drive, learn. So if you don't know any technology, but at least understanding what your kids are watching, listening to, because now kids are not bringing strangers to their home, but they bring it to their mind through this technology. So you just gotta be alert and the lookout, and that's what protection looks like. Not being a dictator, but being a protector. But they have to know the difference, and they have to know you are here to protect them and not to confine them, not to, you know, um, just not want to have fun, but have fun within a perimeter. Have fun, but here's how far you can go, and because action has consequences.
Love that so much. And you mentioned earlier too about men being protectors, and I forgot that I wanted to touch on that with you as well. But so many great things right there. Like just the concept of asking yourself, do I want my daughter, if I had a daughter, to date someone like me? I know we hear that one a lot, and it made me think as you were saying it, I don't think we ever hear that when it comes to the women. And like we're having this identity crisis today of what is a good mom, what is a woman, what is our place in this situation, in this role. a lot of us need to start asking that question too. If my son were to marry someone or be with a woman, do I want him to be with a woman like me? Am I modeling what a good mom is? Am I modeling what a good woman is? And same thing for your daughters. Do I want my daughter to grow up and be like me and to treat her spouse the way I treat mine, etc.? So we need to flip that question on both sides, I think. And I really can't think of any time I've heard anybody say that. So I just wanted to make sure we put that out there for the moms too, that it's not only the men that need to take a what would you call it, a like look at themselves from the outside and see
Right.
how that's all showing up. But yeah, the men being removed from the house and how men are, the protectors, the providers, and the government stepping in, you had mentioned earlier. That was definitely a big part for people in the US, with welfare and all of that. That destroyed a lot of families, a lot of homes. And I think the repercussions of that are still going with so many single moms raising so many children on their own for the most part, that it's just a whole different, I think, mindset that a lot of young people have today after coming out of that situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's unfortunate, but this is where we are. We can't change that. However, um, the rules are the rules. You cannot change it. If you want to play, this is a game. We know it's a game. You cannot change it. It's to learn the rules. That's it. You can't change the game. The game has been there for years and years and years and years and years. You cannot change the game. If you think you can, ask Malcolm X. Ask Martin Luther King. But it's to learn the rules and you play by the rules, and that's how you're gonna win the game.
Yeah. And also, you touched a little bit there on harmony and the whole work-life balance concept that, I'm always like, there's no such thing. That makes no sense. Why do we want to be teetering on this tightrope, trying to find this impossible balance when life is harmony? People talk a lot about the sun rises and sets and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, actually, it doesn't. It's the earth is going around the sun and the moon is going around the earth. It's harmony. That's how nature is. And so, would you like to share a little bit about how you feel we can find more harmony in our life, especially for fathers?
Absolutely. Let's just take for example, we're in a relationship and we're supposed to show up for each other. So let's just say if we want to be balanced, that means I'm showing up 50%, you're showing up 50%. But what happened if I can only show up 20%? Are you still gonna show up 50%? Because now it's unbalanced. Now, if I'm communicating, given the fact that I'm able to communicate, I say, honey, today I can only do 20. Are you able to put in the 80 to make it 100? And there will be time where you I can only put 10, you can only put 30. So now, whoa, wait a minute now. Now we are not at 100. So now we have to be very mindful of, okay, you know what? We are low today, so we're gonna have to be kinder to each other. We're gonna have to be more understanding more than usual. We're gonna have to be more patient with each other because right now we are both running below 50 together. So that's not balance. That's harmony. That's understanding that balance does not work. Um, but once we can find harmony, togetherness and connecting, and not just say, "Hey, I'm waiting for your 50%," even though I'm glowing in 100%. But we need to find balance. Bring your 50. It doesn't work that way. And the more we can find harmony, just like music. I'm playing, you're playing, we're both great, but can we play together? Because individually, we are great players. Saxophonists, violinists, guitarists, we're great individually. Now, can we come together? And that's how harmony forms. And a lot of people, unfortunately, are great all by themselves, but they cannot work together to save their lives. And that's what we have to come back to in a harmony. And even the Bible talks about a perfect harmony. Everything. Um, Look at my fingers. They're not all the same length because if they were, I would not be able to close my hand. That's harmony. So every time that you want to ask yourself, what does harmony look like? Take your hand, close it. That's harmony. That's not balance. Because balance would be that all my fingers are the same size, the same length. I wouldn't be able to close my fist. I wouldn't be able to close my hand.
Mm,
Now think
that's a
about
great
it.
visual.
Yes.
Great visual, great visual. And I never liked the 50-50 anyways. I'm like, why aren't we both bringing 100%? Why are we being underachievers to begin with? That's always weird to
Woo.
me.
Yes.
I'm
Why we
like,
both are doing?
yeah,
Absolutely. I agree.
yeah. I'm like, I want to bring 100, 110 if I can. I hope you're willing to bring 100, 110 when you can. We should be doing the most we can do to support each other, to help each other, to grow. It should never be like, oh, you didn't do your percentage today. Like, no, that's not how life works. We need the harmony. We need to ebb and flow. We need the high notes and the low notes, like you were saying with music.
Absolutely. Yes.
So that's what makes it all a beautiful, beautiful symphony. So
Yes.
another thing I'd love to know is how do you feel that presence of a father helps expand like your capacity to lead? Just that presence in and of itself.
Well, it's a net. It's knowing that, okay, I know my father's there. It's like knowing I have a I have someone that I can come go to. So it allows me to take risks. It allows me to think outside the box. It allows me to know that if ever the world is, is crumbling down on me, that I have somebody that's stronger than me that I can go seek help and understanding. So a presence of a father is not just again, it's not just financially, but it's a sign of somebody's watching out for me. And your father is the only man that wants you to be better than them, but than him. No other man on the planet. No other man on the planet other than your father that wants you to be better than him. So that alone is it's worth having a father present um and who's willing to take the time, no matter the time of the day, no matter what he's got going on, to be present. Sorry. And I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I love that. Never thought about that one, but that's so true that your father is the only one that wants you to be better than him. No other guy is going to want that. They're like,
No other
no, I
guys.
need to be the best. I need to be alpha. I need to be king of the castle. But your father is always rooting for you to be better and stronger and smarter and faster and richer and just everything better than him. I
He's the
love
only
that.
one.
Nice. So, if what Will is saying today about fatherhood on presence is speaking to you, or if you have questions, please feel free to let us know. We have a few moments left. The chat has been open, and we'd love to hear from you. So, another question that I would have for you would be how does maybe having a present father change how we lead that next generation?
I wish I could speak from experience. Um, However, I know that the generation of my children will not be the same because he and she will understand that what a man's supposed to be like. For my son, not being stoic, it doesn't mean you're a man. And saying that you're alpha male, if you have to say you're an alpha male, you've already behind the eight ball. You shouldn't have to say it. You don't have to be the loudest. You don't have to be um you don't have to be the most of anything. Just be yourself. Always protect the most vulnerable. Very important. You don't have to be the loudest to make a point. But having control, know that you have emotions and they're all valid. And I want to put that out there first and foremost. Your emotions are valid, and crying does not make you weak. Actually, it's a sign of strength. Asking for help is a sign of strength because you know that's how strong you are. You know that you need help. So that would definitely change the next generation for men. When it comes to women, it's knowing that you're gonna have a generation of men that are healthier, that have been to therapy, that understand that women are not objects. They're not just uh, uh, a toy to play with. They have more than just the looks and their and sexual appeal. And I think, having a father, me as a father today, and as I'm helping other men to become that man, and I think the next generation he's gonna benefit greatly from having men in our generation that are doing the work, um, doing introspection and retrospection, and showing up for themselves. And I tell men all the time, selfish start with self. So taking care of yourself is taking care of your family. Taking care of yourself is showing up better for your family. And one of the question or two questions that I ask men, and that have changed the landscape when it comes to um, fatherhood, is that the one of the question that we've always asked for the last I don't know how many hundreds of years, but it's just recently we started asking this question. The question we always ask is, are you willing to die or to sacrifice for your children, for your family? And the resounding answer is yes, because I've never met a man that is not willing and able, to sacrifice himself for his family. But the next question is, are you willing to live for your family? What do you mean? If I'm willing to die for them, of course I'm willing to live for them. Are you sure? Are you taking care of yourself? Because taking care of yourself is wanting to live for your family. Cutting down on the alcohol, um, eh, you know, eating healthier, going to therapy, meditate, so on and so forth. That's so a lot of time we say, "Oh no, man, I ain't got time for that because I got to show for my family." No, you're not showing up for your family. You're actually destroying yourself. So ultimately, you're destroying your family. So take care of yourself because you cannot give them an empty place. You cannot give what you don't have. So I think the next generation is going to benefit from men like myself and others who are conscious enough to redefine what masculinity is, what manhood is, and what fatherhood is, because we've been taught what masculinity is, but what it isn't. What fatherhood is and what it isn't. So it's redefining the terms or uh, the definition of what it's supposed to be and what it actually is. So, I'm very hopeful for the next generation, but at the same time, I'm very fearful for the next generation because of how technology is ramping and how we get into our children's mind. Now, we're not getting in their home, but we're getting in their mind, which is worse because it's not just showing up physically anymore, that they're showing in how to think, how to process things, and so on and so forth. So simultaneously, I'm hopeful for the next generation, but I'm also fearful for the next generation. So we have to be both on the defense, but also be aware of what's going on around us.
Mm. So true, so true. And I just want to go back for a moment because you mentioned therapy quite a few times in different contexts. For any men that are listening to this, what would you tell them if they're wondering, do they need therapy or not? And how do they break that down? How do they decide? How do they go about it?
Great question. If I can be very candid and very open, my worst depression comes after I started therapy. And then some people say, well, therapy is supposed to help you. Yes, if you're prepared. And that's the reason why the work that I do, I'm the one who's preparing the man to go to therapy. What does that look like? Of course, for 30 years, the thing that I was hidden, the thing that I've never talked to nobody about, the thing that going in my mind, I've never spoke for 40 years that I've never even opened up to. And then now I have to relive those things. But no one warned me the trigger that comes with that, the nightmares and the panic attacks, the anxiety, and all that kind of stuff that comes with going to therapy. Although therapy is good, it's just like open up, opening up a wound that has been infected. We have to clean it up first before it can heal. So that's number one. Number two, especially if you're a black man, who you choose, because to be quite honest with you, therapists or psychologists, they are very professional, but there are things that are particularly with black men that not everybody can understand. For example, a therapist or psychologist cannot treat an Asian woman the same way you would treat a black man. There's a cultural context. There's this history. You cannot tell me you're going to use the same protocol for an Asian woman versus a black man. Because if I'm talking to a black therapist, and I'm not saying that, if worst come to worst, please do go to therapy. If you have to start with, I don't care who, at least you go going. At the same time, be aware that there are some things that's gonna come up on the surface, and if that person is not able and willing to and understand the culturally speaking, how do I deal with that? white, I'm a white woman. I'm a Caucasian man. Now here's a black man that have been terrorized, that have been racially profiled, have been this and that. How do I do not understand his world? How do I help him? Professionally, I can, but culturally, I can't. And if I'm talking to a black man, he would understand. There are certain things. There are certain look. There's certain there's certain things non-verbal that he will understand without me verbalizing it. And that's a plus. So all that to say, this is the reason why the work that I do is very important. And I'm not saying uh, my work is more important than a therapist and psychologist. Not at all, by far. But I think some men that have never been to therapy before, especially the black men, I think there's a preparation that needs to be done prior to going to therapy. But if it's not something that's available to you, but be aware of it's gonna get worse before it gets better.
Mm, yes, those were a lot of things to touch on. And even for me as a Black female, I feel like I don't even get all of the context of what it's like to be a Black man. And so I
Imagine,
couldn't even
imagine.
imagine being someone else and trying to understand and put myself in your shoes. I'm sure there are wonderful people out there that are really great at it. And hopefully people find those connections. But it's really, really important to, like you did, put that up front that you're going to be ripping open a wound. And you need someone that can be there with you and walk through that with you and support you through that because you never know
Absolutely.
what's going to be on that other side once you rip that wound open. And a lot of us
Yes.
have wounds. Unfortunately, it's part of humanity, being human.
Lots of trauma. Has trauma.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are, whether
Mm-hmm.
you're from the crack house or the White House.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has trauma, and that's even before you were born, because the trauma in the womb, the trauma in the womb. Um, Mama is going through depression, and father is very abusive. The child can feel that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget about that part. We talk about reading to your babies and talking to your babies and all of that stuff while they're in the womb, but we don't think about everything else that's going on that
Unfortunately,
you're not necessarily controlling if you're in certain relationships and might want to reconsider those things. And who knows how much it affects us. It definitely has an effect, though. Um,
absolutely.
But man, we are running out of time. So, for the moms watching right now who are raising children with a father that may be struggling to show up, to be present in those ways that we spoke about, um, is there anything that you'd want those moms to know? Is there anything they can do?
Wow. Speak to the person that you want him to become. Don't speak to the person that he is today, because there's a king in every man. There's a leader in every man. Speak to the person that you want to see, and you will see it. You speak to the man that he is, and he stay that way, or even get worse. You speak to the man that you want him to become, and watch this man grow. Man, the way that we're wired, we will do anything for our family. We'll do anything. We just need to hear the words of encouragement. And I think some men are not getting enough because there are things that are expecting of this man. You're a man. You're supposed to do this. You're supposed. Absolutely, I agree. But watch this man moving hell on earth for you if you just get the word of encouragement. That despite his flaw, that despite his shortcomings, he's still showing up. Ask him. Because you can be a wife or you could be a knife. You could choose who you want to be. When the man is walking through the door, that he's being slaying dragons and he's been dealing with a whole lot of. He doesn't want to come home and deal with a mean wife and nagging him. And as soon as he walk in the door, you forgot to take the trash out. Hey, honey, how was your day? I prepared some plate for a hot plate for you. What can I do to help? And you'll see this man, you'll see the eyes of this man open up. I mean, you'll see this man just, you know what, honey, I'm ready to go work for another 12 hours just to hear those words. Let's have some grace. He does not know how to express his emotions because he didn't think he has any emotions. And please, the worst thing you can do to a man is when this man's trying to be vulnerable and weaponize his vulnerability against him. Use what he says in a moment of weakness, in a moment of turmoil, and he is confining to you, and he is opening up to you. You do that once, you will shut this man down forever. You will never hear him another time. You will never see the man because he cannot trust you, but he'll trust somebody else. Be very careful. Be very
Yeah.
careful.
Yes, that I can't think of a more better place for us to end this conversation. I think that was the icing on the cake. Hopefully, people will receive this with all the love that it was meant to be given with. I thank you so much for joining me today, Will. I think we could go on and on. Um, Will and I met over on the Owl app, which is a great place where you can call people and ask them your questions. So if you want to talk to Will, I will be putting his link on Owl in the show notes along with where you can find him online. And if you use the code emotions, you'll get a free $10 added to your account over on Owl so that you can call him and anybody else when they're online and have a wonderful conversation, ask your questions, learn all kinds of things. There's amazing people over there. It's a great app. So again, like I said, thank you so much for joining us today. Will, we could go on forever, like we definitely do. We're always like, oh, let me add 10 more minutes. Let me add 10 more minutes. That's how I feel right now. Like, let me add 10 more minutes. Um, so please leave us your biggest takeaway from this conversation in the comments. And thank you for joining us today for this episode of the Harmony Principle podcast, where we share ideas that help you return to rhythm. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss out. And we'll see you next Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.